Hello, I want to talk to you today about participatory research. This means doing research with participants all the way from the very start to the very finish. That means not even fully deciding your research question until you're involving participants and getting their viewpoints on the topic that you want to investigate. And this in turn means sharing power, which sounds very straightforward and in practice is often quite difficult, although it is worth doing. I'm going to talk a bit about the pros and cons of participatory research. It's often talked about and written about as though it's all pros and no cons. That's not the case. There are some difficulties. There are potentially some disadvantages of doing participatory research in some contexts. And please don't think that by me saying that, I'm saying that I don't think we should try to share power equally, because I absolutely do. However, there are practicalities. For example, if you're doing research in a university context or within a health authority, you will need to apply for formal ethical approval from a research ethics committee before you even go anywhere near a potential participant and talk to them about what you want to do. Clearly, then, there's a tension here between these frameworks of research governance and how they're implemented through committees, and between doing truly participatory work where you're working with participants from the very start of planning the research question. So in those contexts, participatory research can be difficult to do, and sometimes, even if you really want to, you just have to accept that you need to do a different kind of approach. You might involve participants, you might work collaboratively with participants, but it won't be truly participatory research. The aim, the point of participatory research is to try to redress power imbalances, promote social justice, reduce inequalities, and generally to create change at the same time as answering a research question. It's a transformative research framework where researchers have moved a long way from the ethical stance of do no harm that we inherited from biomedical researchers, and have really moved towards acknowledging the fact that most researchers do research because we want to do something good in the world to create positive change. One of the downsides of participatory research is it's really demanding and resource intensive. It demands more expenditure of personal resources than using conventional Euro-Western research approaches. If you're doing participatory research, you need to bring more of yourself to the process, as much of yourself as you're asking of your participants. And it may take more time depending who you're working with. If you want to do participatory research, for example, with people with mental health problems, you will need to allow time perhaps for people to take a spell in hospital if they need to for their health. And certainly time for people to talk not only about the research but also about what's on their mind personally, what's affecting them personally in meetings. So that's just one example. There are many others. Participatory research can also achieve a great deal. One example is a particular type of participatory research called critical communicative methodology. And the difference with this particular type, it's only slightly different, but the emphasis in CCM is on everyone being an expert. Everyone is regarded as an expert, not necessarily on the same thing, but that everyone has expertise to bring to the research process. And researchers in Europe use this method with Roma communities. Roma people are the nomadic peoples of Europe who are very marginalised, struggle for access to health services, education, housing, employment, are often abused just in the street or on the bus, and generally have a poorer quality of life than most Europeans. And researchers worked with Roma people over some years in a participatory approach, in a critical communicative methodological approach, and gained trust and did research so well that in the end the findings were presented by the Roma co-researchers at the European Parliament. And people at the European Parliament listened and changed the laws in Europe to give Roma people more rights to access basic services, health, housing, education, and so on. So you might think that's fantastic. It is fantastic. It's a terrific outcome for a piece of participatory research. However, Another group of researchers came along a few years later to find out what difference this change in the law had made to the quality of life day to day of Roma people in Europe, and they found that it had made no difference at all. Probably it will make a difference in time, but creating social change on a big level like that takes decades, maybe generations. It takes a long, long time for it to filter through to everyone in the communities. This doesn't mean it's not worth doing. It is worth doing. Clearly it's worth doing. But expecting to make a big change from one research project is unrealistic.